Year 10 and 11, welcome to your English language revision for the AQA Paper 1, and this video will be focusing on question 3. Question 1 and 2 are separate videos, so make sure you check my YouTube channel for those. So today, as I say, we are focusing on English language, the AQA syllabus, Paper 1, question 3. Your assessment objective and focus for question 3 is as follows. Explain, comment on and analyse how writers use language and structure to achieve effects and influence readers using relevant subject terminology to support their views. This question is slightly different because it is going to focus on the entire extract. So we are looking at the full extract, and as I say, it is going to be focused on structure. So before we look at a question, let's go over possible structural devices that we might look for and comment on. Now, the question, when we look at it in a minute, does contain bullet points, and it'll say things like, what does the writer focus on at the beginning of the extract? Does this change focus as the extract develops? Are there any structural features that interest you? So, if we are looking at potential structural devices, then as I say, a short list is here. We might look at sentence length. Is there a long, loaded, complex sentence? If there is, why? Why is there a sentence that might contain a lot of detail? Or remember, with a complex sentence, we get a subordinate clause. Is the subordinate clause within a sentence particularly important? Because remember, that will be segregated via punctuation. Does it stand out for any particular reason? Short, simple sentences. Again, why? A lot of the time, a writer will use a short, very simple sentence for that punchy effect in terms of grabbing our attention and or shocking us. Because remember, a short sentence is very quick. We've all probably read of Mice and Men. One of the short sentences in that's very famous is, he pulled the trigger. Short, simple, grabs our attention and quickly shows us that someone's died. Also, simple sentences tend to stand out as well. We've also got one-word sentences. If anybody has read The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, he uses one-word sentences. Again, we've got to be asking ourselves, why is that? Is that single word of importance? And it must be if it's isolated by itself. So then why does the writer do it? We are told in the bullet points that we must look at how the extract begins. The exam board have outlined that most of the extracts given will be from the beginnings of things. So we're probably not going to get the ending of a book or the ending of something really important. So we must look at how the extract starts. How is it that it interests the reader immediately? What is being described straight away that we can comment on? And likewise, when we're commenting on how the extract begins, how does it end? How do specific paragraphs end? Is it with a rhetorical question? Is it with a really important word that the writer wants us to linger on and think about in more detail? As you remember, the end of a paragraph is followed by a lengthy pause. So we pause. So how does the paragraph end, and how does that affect us and what we're reading about, and how we're going to feel about reading on? Do we feel uneasy? Do we feel tension? Foreshadowing is another device. Now that's a little bit tricky because sometimes we have to have read whole sections of novels and whole chapters and whole books to understand foreshadowing. But again, if we're talking about explicit and implicit meanings, then we are looking beyond the text. So are there any lines that could potentially foreshadow something? Could potentially warn us about events that are to come? Because remember, foreshadowing is a warning to the reader. So don't feel nervous about potentially saying, perhaps this instance of foreshadowing is suggesting this. Because remember, you're only given an extract. Punctuation also I've put there. Punctuation can be used as a form of structure, can't it? If you think about when the colon is used for emphasis or the semicolon, sometimes the second part of the sentence has more impact and therefore the punctuation segregates it and emphasises what's being said. Is there a lot of dashes? If anybody's read, as I say, The Telltale Heart, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, they tend to like the dash. Why? As I said earlier, if we've got a lengthy complex sentence with a lot of commas, why? Is it fast-paced? Is it frantic? Does it leave us breathless? If we've got the exclamation mark, is that telling us that this is a sentence containing high emotion or high urgency? Naturally, the rhetorical question would come in there as well. Why is it that rhetorical questions are used? What does the writer want the reader to think? And then, is there a change in description and topic as the extract develops? And if so, why? So, for example, if the extract begins with a description, I don't know, of the weather or the setting outside, and then it moves to something that is happening to a character inside, and then it moves to a violent act. Why? That is part of structure. What is the writer doing there? Does the action change? Do we have something quite violent and then it settles? Or vice versa, do we have something quite peaceful, then it becomes violent? Why? You might think about the word climax here in terms of high action and the most dramatic point of a text. So you might see, the climax of the extract comes when Jekyll turns into Hyde or whatnot. Okay, so I've said quite a lot there, which is probably boring. So pause the video, just make a couple of bullet points about those potential devices before we actually look at a question. Before we actually look at a specific question about the Jekyll and Hyde extract that I've used in question 1 and question 2, just to keep that consistency, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you about 3 or 4 openings from famous literature novels, just for us to have a look at how they're structured. So first of all, here's the first one. As I say, you've probably already read it. It's The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. And look at this. We've got true in capital letters with an exclamation. Then we get dash, nervous, dash. Very, very dreadfully nervous I had been and am. But why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. How then am I mad? Hearken, and observe how healthily, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. So based on the structural devices that I have given you, you can see that this is loaded. Now, we might focus on the first word. It's almost as if there's extra urgency placed on it because there's capital letters and the exclamation mark. And we're being told perhaps that something's true here, and that because we're told it in this way, it might be something that sounds unbelievable. And then we get the dash, nervous, dash. So the word nervous is isolated for us. That is structure. So is it that they want us to feel nervous, or is it that the narrator is nervous? Very, very dreadfully nervous. Repetition of nervous and very. It modifies it so that we know just how nervous he is. I had been and am, semicolon, which leads us into our rhetorical question. Why will you say that I am mad? That's structure. What is it that the writer wants us to think here? So basically, he's going to tell us a story and we think he's crazy. That foreshadows what's going to happen in the story, we are told. Again, we're perhaps going to have to suspend our disbelief. It's going to be something supernatural. The disease had sharpened my senses. Again, we've got our dash. Not destroyed, not dulled them. The writer wants us to look at not destroyed. Now we've had a change now. We've gone from him telling us he's nervous to the idea of a disease. Again, there's a lot we can say there in the change of topic. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. I heard many things in hell. Repetition of I heard. Repetition is a structural device. How then am I mad? Repetition of a rhetorical question. Asking the reader. And then again, we are forced to think, oh, well, actually, is this person mad? Is this person crazy? And there is a part of your structure in the sense that we're interested to read on because we want to know what has happened to him to think then he should say, well, am I mad? And then we get our one-word sentence, again, of hearken, with an exclamation mark. So there's a high sense of urgency there, and that means listen. So that one word structural device is telling us that we must listen. And it's almost as if it's been highly emotive there with the exclamation. And observe how healthily, look at the dash there. So we have to stop at the word healthy. So then that contrasts with the idea that he's mad. So once again, we've had a slight change in topic from someone nervous to the implication of a disease, to someone mad, to someone who says they're healthy. How calmly I tell you the whole story. So the slight change in sentence topics here is overwhelming, and it does leave the reader thinking, what is it that this man has suffered? And the last line, look, I'm going to calmly tell you this story about what's happened to me. So, as I say, this was just a practice for structure, just to show you the types of things we might say. I'm going to bring up another example, as I say, for you to look at. So there's plenty of practice before we hone in on a more lengthy piece from Jekyll and Hyde. Yes, this extract is a lot shorter, and in your exam you'll be given about 40 to 50 lines, but as I say, it's just for practice. So let's look. Mother died today. Or maybe yesterday, I don't know. I had a telegram from the home. Mother passed away, funeral tomorrow, yours sincerely. That doesn't mean anything. It may have been yesterday. Massively emotive. Look at your opening simple sentence. It is simple because of the information that is contained, but it is so effective because it is short. It grips our attention that someone's mother has died, and that there is highly emotive, isn't it? Mother died today. It's someone revealing something very personal. There's no emotion though. Whilst we feel emotive, there's no emotion that mother died today. It's very factual. And then we get a complex sentence to follow that, or maybe yesterday, comma, I don't know. And look at your punctuation. It forces us to stop at or maybe yesterday, and then obviously we have a massive issue there in terms of structure because that contrasts with what's just been said. Therefore, we're wondering why the writer or the narrator doesn't know when their mother died. The punctuation of the comma before I don't know and the full stop once again modifies it, and in the sense that it emphasises it and allows it to stand out as something isolated. And in terms of structure, that is a massive part of a sentence. I don't know when my mother died. So just think about that. I need not explain that to you. We then get, again, like a build-up of short, almost fast-paced sentences. Mother passed away, funeral tomorrow, yours sincerely. As I say, fast-paced. We take in the information very quickly. It's as if the narrator doesn't care. We're getting a matter-of-fact type of sentences. And the structure there leads us to wonder why the narrator doesn't care. So is that a slight instance of foreshadowing whereby we're going to find out? That doesn't mean anything. It may have been yesterday. So we finish with that repeated idea of, my mum's dead, but I don't actually know whether she died today or yesterday. And that is very cold. So look at that, as I say, if we're practicing structure, look at the short sentences in this extract and think about how it affects us. I'm not saying what I say is right, it's your interpretation. We'll look at one more last extract from Lolita, the opening of Lolita, and then, as I say, we'll really focus on how to answer a lengthy question. Instead of me talking you through this one, just have a look yourself. It reads as follows: Lolita, light of my life, fire of my loins, my sin, my soul, Lolita, the tip of the tongue taking a trip of 3 steps down the palate to tap at 3 on the teeth, Lolita. So again, look at your sentence lengths, your punctuation, how it begins, how it ends. What would you identify about this passage? So just pause the video and take a couple of seconds to test yourself. And then, as I say, we're going to look at answering a question. So this is going to be the question before I bring up the extract, so you've got some focus. You now need to think about the whole of the source. As I said at the beginning, we have to talk about the entire extract here. How has the writer structured the text to interest you as a reader? Quite general. You could write about what the writer focuses your attention on at the beginning, how and why the writer changes this focus as the extract develops, any other structural features that interest you. And it is for 8 marks. So, how has the writer structured the text to interest you as the reader? This is the extract we are going to use. The same extract, as I say, that I used in question 1 and 2. It's probably a sensible idea to pause the video here and read it instead of me reading it all to you. So please pause the video, take your time to read through the extract, paying close attention to all the things we've discussed, how it begins, does it change topic, why? Is there any instances of foreshadowing, rhetorical questions, short sentences, overly detailed complex sentences, punctuation used to emphasise something or to force the reader to pause in a particular location? Pause the video now and have a read, and then we'll look at an answer. An example response. Naturally, this isn't a full answer, but it's just kind of showing you what's expected. It might say the following: Stevenson uses structure to interest the reader by opening the extract with a detailed, complex sentence, presenting the unsettling physical description of Jekyll changing into Hyde. The most racking pang succeeded, a grinding in the bones, deadly nausea, and a horror of the spirit that cannot be exceeded at the hour of birth or death. The use of punctuation here emphasises key detail, which heightens the suspense as we wait for the climax of Hyde's appearance. As the extract develops, Stevenson digresses from physical description to subtly touch on the emotions of Jekyll, and we realise that these contrast with the physical pain he endures. I felt younger, lighter, happier in body. This slight deviation from physical description grasps the reader's interest, who wonder why he enjoys the change and question this as an instance of foreshadowing. Does Jekyll relish being Hyde? The extract changes focus to comment on the morning. The morning, black as it was nearly ripe. Again, this diverts the reader's attention away from the climax of the action, which is the change, therefore holding our interest, and more specifically here, using connotations of something dark, black. Additionally, the endings of each paragraph highlight the progression of Jekyll from losing in stature to becoming Edward Hyde to ultimately feeling deformed. If I had more space, obviously, and carried on that answer, I think I would add a little bit more detail there as to how the paragraphs end, because clearly that's kind of stopped in the middle of my answer, if you like. Now, remember, this is up 8 marks is up for grabs here, so you do need to write more than that. This is just an example of what we might say. And I'm hoping that you did pause the video to read over the extract to see what you think you would see as well. So we've mentioned the opening, we've mentioned the endings, we've mentioned the fact that he digresses from the action to tell us about other things, which holds our interest because we are desperate to hear about Hyde, aren't we? So as I said, just look through the extract and find other things. You've got the dash there in the central paragraph. You have got a lot of long, complex sentences where the subordinate clause is emphasised. For instance, tenfold more wicked. Why is it that being wicked is emphasised within a sentence? Obvious reasons there, but just to highlight it to you. So, I hope this has been useful. Question 3 is solely focused on the whole source and structure. Please check out my other videos on question 1 and question 2. There's also literature revision on my channel. Just type in Stacey Reay, Stacey, and Reay is Reay. And good luck in your English language exam.